Hello, you've reached the Storied Human podcast, hosted by me, Lynn Thompson. Each week, I share a story, either an interview with someone fascinating or a short solo from me. I love your stories, and I learn so much from them. Hopefully, you will too. So, welcome. If you are new here, I'm so happy to have you. If you are a returning listener, many thanks. So, here it is, the next episode of The Storied Human. Hello, and welcome to The Storied Human. I'm Lynn Thompson, and today I'm super lucky to have my guest, Ahna Hendrix, who I found on a really cool Facebook group, bunch of podcasters trying to find their way, and I'm so intrigued by her work. Ahna Hendrix believes that when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits, and I certainly agree with that. She is a divine luminary whose work as an intuitive channel, teacher, spiritual guide, and podcaster dedicates herself to reintroducing the world to its spirituality through the Akashic Records. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Spiritual guidance counseling, coaching, and workshops and courses designed to empower individuals to take the reins and transform their lives. Ahna is also the host of the Soul Driven podcast, a weekly podcast that explores the intersection of living a soulful and spiritual life in a driven and ambitious world. And I always want to hear more about that because there is such a contrast between our world and how we want to live. So join her for practical guidance, truthful discussions, and interviews with people who are successfully living a soul-driven life. I love that that's your emphasis. I love that you've come to that place where you want to talk to people who understand what it's like to live a life that's driven by something more spiritual than just, the earthly ambitions. So tell me, how did you get here? That's such you're in such an interesting place. You do such interesting work. How did you start? What's your journey?
Sure. So as we kind of spoke about a little bit before we started recording, I come from a family of entrepreneurs. It's what I grew up in. And I consider myself to be a very spiritual person and also a very practical person. Part of why my podcast is called Soul Driven, because I'm like equal parts soul and equal parts driven. I'm super practical, down to earth. And yet I've always been very spiritually connected. I was born into this lifetime knowing God, and we've always had a personal relationship. And so that has always, really infused everything that I've done. But because I grew up in small businesses around entrepreneurs, the way that I viewed life was work, and so everything was about work and about achieving and about, getting that check mark and doing those things and making that money and all sorts of things. And I always really struggled working for other people. I have a very strong personality and I don't take orders well. I kind of do my own thing. And when you grow up with entrepreneurs, all of my siblings were all entrepreneurs. It's just what you kind of, I heard someone say once that entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs because they wake up in the morning and they can't be anything else. And that's just really the truth.
I find that to be true.
Yes, absolutely. I look at people who are like, have their 9 to 5 and they're building their side hustle. And I'm like, that's awesome. Do that if you can, because I was just kind of baptized into getting thrown off the deep end in my 30s. But my background primarily is in marketing, and I was the CEO of a marketing agency for about 10 years. I built multiple businesses in that time. I helped people build multiple businesses. And right towards the end of 2018, I ended up shutting down a business that it was a retail business, something I'd never done before. And what was really unique about this business is that I'd found a part of my purpose in the midst of it. And I had been searching for my purpose my entire life. It was always the prayer I offered up, like, God, what is my purpose? Tell me my purpose. Show me what it is I'm supposed to be doing. But this business flat out wasn't viable. We couldn't scale it, we couldn't grow it. And it, quite frankly, we're just very ahead of our time. And so I had to walk away from it. And it broke my heart in a way that it just, I mean, I'd never gone through so much pain before. And that happened right at the end of 2018. And then I decided to join a group of friends who are doing a 90-day no drinking challenge. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I definitely had an unhealthy relationship with alcohol. I was quite the party girl growing up. and and this 90 days combined with the amount of heartbreak that I was going through, this sobriety just absolutely ripped the doors off of the hinges in regards to my spiritual life. I mean, within 30 days, I was questioning everything. A lot of my ideals, the way that I viewed the world, were just completely up in the air. You know, I grew up in Christianity. That's certainly my background. And so everything was up for debate. And really within like that first 3 months, everything just shifted. I call it my metaphysical awakening, because I've always been a very spiritual person. And so in the midst of that year, I came across the Akashic Records and things just totally shifted from there. But I'll pause because it's a long story.
I love this story. There's a real common theme that people who have breakthroughs like you had went through a painful time right before. It's almost like we break, we open up, and we realize things. And I also can totally relate to drinking less because I used to drink a lot when I was young, and I would drink sort of by habit. I think a lot of people are in that gray area between, problem drinking and just maybe leaning on it too much. And I think once you stop leaning on it, which I just naturally stopped drinking, it didn't feel well. I didn't feel well. I'm older and it just didn't feel good. Once you stop drinking, it's harder, I find, because I don't numb anything. Everything just comes in. But I think that that's key, right? To the heartbreak. And then you removed your crutch. And
Yes,
so it all
100%.
came flooding in. That's so cool. And also that you were there for it. I mean, that's not easy to go through, but you were there for it. Like, you're like, okay, bring it on.
Yeah, I would like to say that I was like that brave in the moment, but it was really just like more of a decision because I was really seeing myself going to that crutch in a way that was unhealthy. And when my friend, she had just broken up with her boyfriend, and she was like, we're going to do this challenge. And we got some friends. And I was like, I need to do that too. I just knew I needed to, what I've really come to see with alcohol, drugs, whatever, when we turn to these things and when we rely on these things, it's because there's something missing on the inside. I think it's that spiritual connection that we're all hungry, yearning, looking for. And when I say spiritual to me is really coming home to ourselves, to who we are, to the divinity that is within all of us, And when I look back at those years when I was drinking, like, I was so bored with life. I was so like, there was this part of me that was always looking for the magic. I was not interested in like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go to college. I'm going to like get married and have the white picket fence and do the kids. And like, I had zero interest in all of that, but I looked around and it was just like, really, is this all we're here for? And also I was very awkward. I mean, I would like go to bars when I was 21 and talk to people about God, not like trying to evangelize them at all. I was just curious, like, what do you think about God? Like, I didn't do the surface conversations very well. Like, what do you do for work? Like I wanted to be like, so what's your greatest fear?
Yeah. So you crave that depth. Yeah.
Yeah. And so alcohol kind of made me a little bit more socially acceptable, along the way.
Mm-hmm.
But I completely agree with you. And I see it so much within my work with my clients. Pain is such a beautiful teacher. And of course, we do everything in our power to run in the other direction from it. But it truly, truly always transforms our life.
If you learn how to lean into it. And that's something I've been hearing a lot about and have a hard time still doing that. But it's just a beautiful thing if you can lean into it and go through it instead of trying to avoid it. And I think that idea that people sometimes drink to avoid things too. They just don't want to face things about themselves, or they don't want to be hurt. And so
Yeah.
they drink. But you know what came to mind when you said there's also a hole inside, like a spiritual hole, is I don't know if you ever heard this, but Jung said there's a reason we call alcohol spirits, because we're looking inside that bottle for something
Absolutely.
much more than just a quick high, that we're spiritually longing. I feel so much lately that that's the world, and they
Yeah.
don't even know it. They're just, I see it everywhere. People are longing for something, and I think the answer is to connect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you help people do, is connect to their true selves, their spiritual, some people are just not acknowledging that part of themselves, and so they're not their full selves.
Well, we're taught from a young age to ignore that
Yeah,
part of ourselves,
we
right?
are.
We're taught that all of the answers are found in our exterior world. So as we get older, we're looking for people to fill that hole, money to fill that hole, cars, success. You know what I mean? We're
Yeah,
looking on the outside of ourselves. Like we're literally taught to ignore everything that's within us,
yeah,
which is really what is going to feed us, what's going to guide us, what is our truth in this lifetime. And so it's so easy, like, I mean, I was in that world too, and I'm still in that world. Like I'm a human being, like
right.
I still catch myself like looking for outside answers to my problems, or looking for outside exterior material things to satisfy and satiate me in a way that nothing can. I mean, it's normal, it's a natural part of our evolution, and it takes time to really be able to work through that. And I
Yeah,
don't think we'll ever be perfect at it. i
no,
don't i don't see that. Earth is a learning planet. It's not the like hang out, be cool, float through life planet. So we're constantly evolving here, and that's really part of the beautiful journey, although it could totally suck sometimes. you know
well, they say you choose you scope out your life plan before you incarnate. And I've always said, I think I got a little ambitious, because I was like, I'm
Same.
not sure I like this. But you always have free will, so you don't have to do. I've been feeling that way a lot lately. Like, you don't have to do everything everybody's talking about. You don't have to always be striving and going for your passion and being, having your good habits. You can also rest.
Well, that's why it's so important to connect with ourselves and to connect with our own wisdom that's within, so
Yeah,
that we can decide like, okay, is this for me or is it not? Because we can like think something is really cool, really appreciate it, admire it, but no, like, but that's not for me, and really learn how to focus in on the things that are for us. Because there is, I mean, the outside world, there's endless opportunities and endless holes for us to dive into. And so we have to, that's part of our own responsibility in our lives, is to take that time to say like, okay, I love this. This is interesting. Is this for me? Should I go here? Should I spend my time here? And then make those decisions, because not everything is for us. And that's a beautiful thing. We don't need to do all the things. And I think especially, I know within the spiritual community anyway, like, oh my gosh, like there's endless things, endless rabbit holes. But even within the business world too, like I get on Twitter and there's so many people talking about this app or this thing or this strategy, or you know what I mean? And if you don't have a solid sense of self, if you're not able to kind of sit with yourself and say like, okay, is this for me? Is this for my business? Or is this, for my life? Then you're going to be lost in running around. And again, like no shame, because we all get caught up in that
we all
sometimes.
do it. Yeah,
But that's our job, is to
discernment.
learn
Yeah,
absolutely what is for us and what is not.
that's such a good point. But we don't, like you say, we're not taught to trust that inner knowledge,
No,
and so we
no.
have to work on that. And I'm just sort of fascinated that one of the things you use to help people is the Akashic Records. I've heard a little bit about it, but I'd love to have you tell our listeners more, because it's an amazing topic. I'm really interested.
Yeah. So the Akashic Records for me, it was really interesting. I joke about this. When I first came across the name, I was like, whoa, it was this like Hollywood moment where I felt like I was coming home. Like I felt like I'd found something that I always knew. But then I looked into the definition and I was like, what? I was still very much in my marketing world. I had no real context for understanding the Akashic Records, and it just felt too cool for me, to be quite frank about it. But so to explain the Akashic Records, I think what's most important to like first understand is that everything is energy, right? So the wall is energy, my chair is energy, I'm energy, but it's all vibrating at different frequencies of energy. So the Akashic Records are located around us at all times. They're always here, but they're actually located at such a high frequency that it's in a different dimension. And so when I access the Akashic Records, I literally raise my vibration so that I'm able to access that kind of energy. And if this sounds kind of esoteric, you can kind of think about what it's like to be around someone who has really great energy and they like lift you up whenever you're around them. You know, it's the same kind of concept. So within the Akashic Records is every thought, deed, action, anything that you can imagine, past, present, future. Literally everything exists within the Akashic Records. And because everything is energy, everything has an Akashic Record. So I could enter the Akashic Records for your home, for your grandmother's ring, for your pet, for a city, a state, like literally anything has an Akashic record. It's really incredible. And when I say record, it is a record of all of the energetic records that have been compiled in the life of whatever that energetic thing is. So, you know, and when folks hear like past, present, future, time is such an interesting concept, right? So you've probably heard that it is a human concept. Time does not exist. In fact, past, present, future are all happening at one time. And so when I go into the Akashic Records, I can access past and present information, and it's very solid. It is solidified, it is there. But when it comes to future timelines, we are consistently recreating new timelines with every word, thought, deed, action. So while I can tap into future timelines, they're consistently being recreated. I mean, there's literally thousands of timelines that are coming out of pretty much every moment. Or when you make a big decision in life, like when you decide to move to one house versus another, like boom, all these thousands of timelines open up. So future is one of those things that hasn't been solidified, right? It hasn't been crystallized yet. However, there's still energy attached to it so that we can see what timelines are happening within that moment, if that makes sense. But suffice it to say, the Akashic Records, I mean, it's like, I consider the Akashic Records to be God energy. Because if you think about God, source, universe, whatever you want to call it, God created everything. God knows everything. God contains everything. And that is exactly what the Akashic Records is. And I'm not saying the Akashic Records are God, and I'm not saying that I channel God, but the energy within the Akashic Records is that such a high vibrational energy. I mean, it is pure, pure love, and it heals you simply by being there. I mean, I am a completely different person. I shouldn't say completely, but I'm a much nicer person. I'm a much happier person. I am a much more healed person than when I first came to the Akashic Records. And that's simply by being there, not even considering the work that I've done within the Akashic Records. So I'll pause there.
That's amazing to me. So many things that you said. It's just totally amazing. I am very interested in how you learn to raise your frequency, because I have read about that. I mean, how did you learn that? How do you do that?
So, I mean, the thing is that when I first started working within the records, my first real introduction to it. So when they popped up for me, I was like, yeah, that's cool. Awesome. You got to be like some kind of like, I don't know, like wizard, magician person to work with them. But they kept popping up for me. And then one day at the very like beginning of 2020, How to Read a book, How to Read the Akashic Records by Linda Howe, popped up on Facebook. And for whatever reason, I decided to purchase it. It arrived on a Saturday morning. By the afternoon, I'd read through like 3/4 of the book. And that Monday morning, I went into the Akashic Records the first time. I read the prayer, I followed her instructions, and it was like this wild ride. I mean, I was seeing, feeling, hearing, knowing things all at one time. It felt like I was like going through a washing machine. My energy had shifted so much, like my stomach physically hurt. It was very uncomfortable for me at first. It really took me some time to learn how to work with my energy, how to shift my energy in these ways. Now I can click into the Akashic Records very quickly because, of course, I've been doing it for a long time, and I can raise my energy very quickly. But it really takes practice. You know, these are muscles that we all have, but just like any muscle, we've got to work it out to understand it, to learn how to work with it, to know when it's happening, to know, you know what I mean? All
Yeah.
about it.
It makes sense that you would have to practice. Yeah. So, okay, so there was a prayer involved and you had to practice at it. Now, what do you do when you go there? Like, how do you help somebody using the Akashic Records?
Yeah. So in client sessions, again, there are just unlimited ways in which to work within the records. Everything from pets. So I've had clients come to me who are really having issues with their pets. Maybe it's health issues. Maybe they've adopted an animal and they're having problems like really connecting with it, or they're, like eating up their house, whatever. And we can understand that relationship. We can clear out energy there that prevents them from connecting. We can find out what's going on health-wise. Relationships are a huge, huge theme with my clients. Folks, I got a lot of parents who come in and want to know how to be the best parents with their kids, maybe to understand a child that they have a lot of issues or friction with. And they're like, oh my gosh, I love my kid, but like it's driving me crazy. Romantic relationships are obviously very, very popular. People really want to understand, like, all right, I'm with this person, what's going on here? And within the records, like, what I love about the records, I call them soul records because they go down to the very root of whatever it is we are talking about. So if I, say like, okay, so tell me about Susie and Tim's relationship. Like, what do we need to know here? What's most important for her to understand? It could end up being like a 20-minute channeling all about their past lives, their lessons, what they're teaching each other, the dynamics within the relationship, the pros and cons, everything. And the Akashic Records are not a tool that are ever going to be like, you need to leave this person. This person is not good for you. Don't take this job. That's not what the Akashic Records are about. The Akashic Records are about providing us the information so that we can make the decision on our own, because we create our lives, right? We create our reality. And so they are just about providing the information so that then someone can make a decision from that standpoint. Life purpose is a huge topic. People want to know, like, why did I incarnate here? What are my lessons? What are the themes for this lifetime? What are my gifts? What are my talents? Patterns and issues, like working through things. I've got folks who I work with, a lot of clients for like body issues, right? Like they want to understand, I've always been an emotional eater. What is this? What's going on? How can I clear this out? How can I manage this? Over to like depression or anxiety. Like I've always struggled with these things. What's going on? Where did this come from? A lot of this stuff is, connected to past lives. And so, healing really takes place on several levels, right? The person has to really be ready for that. They have to be ready to release that. Then it's coming into an awareness of what's going on, and then it's that energetic clearing, that work. And we can do that within the Akashic Records as well. We can clear out those old records. We can replace them with other records. There's a number of things that can happen there. There's literally just, I could go on and on with examples, but you name it. I've worked with clients just across the board. The work that I most love to do is like the hardcore, I've got folks everywhere from like, what are my gifts and talents, to like, my life is falling apart. How do I fix it? I love that. I'm like, let me roll up my sleeves. Let's dive in. Let's do it. I like that kind of work because obviously I think it's very fulfilling to do. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
forever grateful for even being able to be a part of people's journeys, but I'm also very practical. And while the spiritual can be cool and interesting, like I want real life changes. I want to see things shift, you know, and I want that for my clients as well. So I like doing the hard stuff. I've got a couple of clients who, when they first came to me, they're like, thank you so much for being willing to work with me on this. And I'm like, let's do it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
here for it.
You like to dig in and get results.
Yes, I'm a
Yeah.
problem solver. You know, I like excavating things and I'm a detective. Like, it's fun. It's
That's so
interesting to
cool.
me. You know,
Yeah.
the human journey it's incredible.
I just know a little bit. I've just been exposed a little bit to the way that some of our problems are connected to past lives, and I am just fascinated by it. And I'm just amazed at when you just take a little time and
Yeah.
you acknowledge something, the
Yeah.
difference it can make. I think we're just not taught these tools. Like you said, we're not taught to look at things that way. And I'm learning, the more you do it, the more you trust that quiet inside. And the more you really try to release things, the better off you'll be. So these things I never would have imagined I would be talking about just a few years ago. You help expand people's worlds. I don't think you're ever going to be the same once you're exposed to these things. And I think that's such a wonderful way to heal people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, our world right now, especially in the past several years with the pandemic, everything, people are awakening in ways that
They are.
it is wild for me to look back on my life, you know, just 5 years ago and think about like some of the beliefs that I had or the ways that I saw the world. It's just so wild for me. I'm like, wait, why didn't you see this before? Why weren't you here before? But like everything happens in perfect timing. You know, we can't rush that, especially spiritual awakenings. Like we can fight it, we can suffer, we can do all the things, but it will happen in its right timing. Everything happens in the right time, you know? But I love that. Pets to like animals to me in general are I have such a special heart for animals. I can't
Me
even
too.
tell you. And I love that. And I think it's really when people do have those interactions and you know within your body when it's truth, when someone's, you know, sharing honest
You
information
do.
with you. And it's absolutely healing. Absolutely. People can get so much closure, you know, from connecting with folks who have passed away potentially through a medium or, you know, within the Akashic records. Like I've had folks who've passed away come through in sessions. Mediumship is very different from Akashic records, but
Mhm.
you know, I've had like clients whose parents passed away when they were very young and it like completely derailed their life. They were heartbroken over it. And so understanding why it was that their parents passed away, what was going on there, or a parent who was maybe completely emotionally unavailable to them throughout their life, or seemingly didn't love them or was abusive to them, like having understanding about these areas, I mean, it shifts your life forever, you know. It's very
That's
powerful.
that is powerful. One of the things that's happened in my life the last, I would say, well, I've always been into nature, but last 4 years, it's really intensified where I literally feel like called by Mother Nature, like literally called to be with her and to like put my feet on the ground and to, I mean, I've always spent time in nature, but I feel pulled. And I think that I try to tell everybody to do that, to spend time in nature because it's science backed, that it's good for you to nature wash and you heal better. But there's something going on with Mother Earth. There's something big. And I felt really alone with it until I started reading and talking to people and realized, okay, this is a thing.
Absolutely, it's a thing. And you may like not everyone is connected to the earth in the same way. You know, like I just had a client yesterday, very much her soul was in like it originally incarnated on planet Earth. That's where it started. And so
Wow.
she is very connected with Earth and very connected with the vibration of Earth, what's happening within Earth. I mean, everybody has different connections and different ways to things, you know. So if this is you and you're being called in this way and but other people aren't, that's just because your connection with Earth is that much deeper. You
Mhm.
know, really depends on where your soul originated. And There's probably a reason for that. You may not even be aware of it yet. It may come down the road for you, but there's something in there for you, you know?
It's so interesting. I do think in general that people would be better off if they were, more connected to nature and more in balance. I feel like people are living like, like you said, the 9 to 5 kind of thing. They're living like a whole day inside of a metal building without sunlight. It's just, that makes me sad.
Absolutely. I mean, I am like a massive nature lover. I'm outside as much as possible. My partner and I are kind of doing the Airbnb life right now, and our current place has this little back porch, and we've got like this little yard, and it's so cute. I spoil the heck out of the wildlife wherever I go. So I've got like, treats out there for them, and we've got to know the chipmunks and the squirrels and the birds, and I'm out there multiple times throughout the day. Sometimes even when it's raining, because part of our roof is covered, just because I need that connection. I
Yeah,
need
I
to
think
be
that's so
outside.
healing. And I just feel I don't feel afraid of animals anymore. Like there's a little snake that I almost stepped on the other day and it was headed into our garden. And I just said, hello, it's just not the same. I was startled, but I'm not afraid.
Yeah. 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 I'm even cool with spiders now, which was not the case.
Me too. I can't believe you said that. My mother used to always say, don't kill the spiders. They don't hurt us, and they eat the littler bugs in our house. And I always thought that was odd, but interesting. But I feel that way. I feel like I can't kill the spiders anymore.
Yeah. I just take
It's
them
just,
outside because
yeah,
I don't want to think about them when I'm laying in bed at night.
exactly. There's a
But I
shift.
don't want
Yeah,
to kill them by any means. I'm thankful for them.
there's
It's a,
definitely a shift that happens because I used to kill them
yeah,
and now I don't want to.
same.
That's so interesting. So where do your clients come from? Like, how do you, are they all walks of life, or, all different ages or professions? Or I'm really interested who seeks this kind of healing out.
Yeah. I think that what's interesting to me is that the folks who come to me really like it goes through these different sort of like evolutions. Like I'll have a very specific type of person for a while, and then another specific type of person, or I'll have like a group of people who come in with kind of like the same topic that they want to talk about. And then another one. Back when I was single, I used to notice this sort of a pattern too. It was like I'd end up dating a bunch of Leos for a while, and then a bunch of like, like I would have like these like pockets of folks. I think that honestly, if I was to kind of generalize, I would definitely say that 40 plus, 40 to 60 is really like my hot spot. I feel like a lot of people who are really going through those midlife changes, a lot of people who are really wanting to get, really deeper about their life, who are awakening spiritually, who are like, what's going on? I've got a lot of people who come to me because they understand, they come from an organized religious background like mine, or even my business background. They're very practical people. And they're like, what the heck is going on? I'm like hearing things, and you know what I mean? But I would say just hands down, folks who come to the Akashic Records are getting ready to make big shifts in their life. That's across the board. When people, because the Akashic Records it's still an esoteric thing to a lot of people. It's not like people have heard about it here and there within, the spiritual community, but it's not like tarot cards, right? And it's not considered that accessible either. Even though anyone can read the Akashic Records, you don't have to be special. Everyone has access to them. People who come to the Akashic Records, like legitimately are getting ready to make big shifts in their life in whatever shape and form. It could be purpose, spiritual, family, career. Like you don't come to the Akashic Records for, oh, I just want to try this out. That rarely happens.
That's so interesting. So they're like on the edge.
Yeah.
They're ready to jump into something,
Yeah.
and they need guidance. That makes sense. And it sounds so fascinating. Like each person must be so different and so interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool
That's,
because when I go into the Akashic Records for different people, I'm accessing their Akashic Records. So I'm in their energy and I
yeah.
am working with their guides. What's my gifts continue to expand. And one of the most recent things, which has been really wild, is like my smell. Like when I'm in people's Akashic records now, I just smell them the entire time. It's bizarre.
Whoa.
But like if they're having pain in their body, if they're dealing with something physical, like I feel it as soon as I open up their Akashic records. Like I am literally in their energy while I'm working within their Akashic records. So it's so cool because it is completely different every time.
That's amazing to me. Now, how do you do anything to sort of decompress or come out of that? Like, I
Yes.
would imagine you're not exactly, you don't just bounce back.
Yes. I think that, learning how to ground is extremely important. I have a couple of like just energy clearing things that I do, very simple things like just washing your hands can actually really release. There's like a Reiki thing that I learned for clearing my energy. It takes like 5 seconds. Sometimes I'll go outside. Whether you're reading the Akashic Records for yourself or other people, going and doing really mundane things afterwards is huge. So like taking out the trash, eating some
Oh, I see. Yeah. Get back
having
to
a
like
conversation with a
the
friend.
normal.
Yeah, just bringing your energy back down,
Yeah.
to planet Earth. So it really just depends on the session. Some sessions I get out of and it's very light. Other sessions, like I got to put more work into not only disconnecting and fully releasing that energy, but also grounding myself from it. Oftentimes, when I work with other spiritual practitioners, man, we go to like different places because it's like two strong energies coming together. And so it takes a bit more like coming down to planet Earth after that.
Yeah,
But
I would imagine.
those usually feel great. So it's a joyful thing.
That's so great. So I would like to know, people want to know how to get in touch with you. I'm going to put your information in my show notes, but can you tell us the main way we could reach out to you?
Yeah. So going to my website, ahnahendrix.com, and that's AHNAHENDRIX.com. You'll find everything about me, about my podcast. I share all my episodes there. You can listen, tune in there. You can also find my podcast pretty much anywhere, Spotify, iTunes. I've got a YouTube channel. I hang out on Instagram a lot. If you want to connect with me and say hi, please do. I'll say what's up. Yeah, I love connecting with people. So feel free to reach out. Right now, I'm getting ready to launch a course called An Akashic Journey with the Body. That is just going to be an incredible 6-week journey. It's a fully channeled Akashic Record course all about the body. We are going to literally revolutionize our relationships with the body. Like this is coming at it from such a completely different angle. When my guides first started bringing this in, it was just like, what? Because we're going to find out like what the body is on a molecular level, why we have a body, what was before our body, what is the purpose of our bodies, how do we care for our bodies, like very practical, tangible things, but also from a very metaphysical perspective as well. So if that's of interest to you, that we've got that's an early bird thing happening right now. And we kick that off on June 19th. So there's also Akashic sessions. And I also work with folks doing mentorships. So these are spiritual, guidance sessions. They're intuitively led. We work with your guides, your higher self. And it's kind of like coaching, but I think way cooler.
It sounds way cooler.
And we've got and they also include my restoration sessions, which I call them restoration sessions, but they're like healing sessions. And that's us working within the Akashic Records to remove whatever issues, whatever things are holding you back, energy that's keeping you stuck or stagnant, whatever the case may be. So it's a really beautiful pairing. But yeah, I'm kind of all over the place. And you can
That's
just find me
wonderful.
anywhere at Ahna Hendrix.
Yeah, I love the idea of looking at the body in a different and more meaningful spiritual way. I think that would be great because we're not taught any of that. We're taught kind of a superficial way to look at our bodies.
Well, it's, the thing is that from a very young age, we're taught to ignore our body. We're taught that the
Yeah,
body is not right. We're taught to, take care of it in ways that don't align. And then when we get older, we're taught to just like love ourselves, love our bodies, take care of it. But it's like, what is the body? We see our body as separate. We really struggle with like loving and accepting it because we don't understand it. And that's all about, that's what we're diving into in this course, is bringing that together and helping to reconnect, because there's a real disconnect for the majority of us when it comes to our body. It's not something that we like. It's got a lot of pain associated with it. And we've sort of really hurt that relationship along the way of our, throughout our life. And so reestablishing that, having a better understanding, not one that you can read, from online sources and, medical magazines and stuff like that. This is very different. So I'm so excited. A lot of this information is like sitting on my back burner right now. And I just can't wait to dive, because I'll be learning with folks in the course too, with a lot of this. So it'll be incredible.
That sounds so good. And I think it's needed, because sometimes people think being spiritual is being, not the body, right?
Yeah.
They're so like airy fairy that they're not paying attention. And really, both things are important.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just ask yourself, who would you be if you understood your body? Who would you be if you accepted your body? But like, for me, that's huge, and I think for a lot of people, especially women out there, like, who would we be if we understood our body? How would we take care of ourselves in a different way? How would we view ourselves a different way? Like, it would change everything.
Yeah.
Because for so many of us, our body has like, and our ideas about our body and our relationship with our body have prevented us from fully diving into life, fully accepting ourselves, fully stepping into our power and allowing ourselves to be seen. And so this is definitely like life altering work, and so crucial, so powerful, for those who feel
needed.
called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's you're bringing up for me is when I had kids late, and when I had children, that was very powerful, like to respect my body for the ability to do things I didn't even know I knew how to do. And just that wonderful feeling of being able to give birth to another human being. And then I breastfed forever. Like, people were like, is she ever going to wean her children? But I just love that, maybe I connected in a way I hadn't in so long. I think when you're really little, you connect to your body.
Yeah. Well, kids know exactly what they want because their body tells them, but they have a lot of adults and outside opinions about what is right or wrong for them, and instead of explaining to children, they just say, no, you're not allowed to do this. You're not allowed to have that. So then they teach them to not trust their body's intuition, instead of at least explaining to them and helping them to understand, like, I think that there's this whole element of parenting where parents treat children too much like children, and children are so wise and so intuitive. And honestly, they know what's going on. They can handle it. And if we're honest with them, total, game changer for them.
Totally different interaction. Yeah, that's so true. We always say, just get out of their way. Yeah. That's how we parented. It's like they came a certain way, and you just got to let them grow the way they want to, and get out of their way. They're like, they're like plants. They're like plants that are growing, and you don't want to tell them what to do. They know what to do. I always felt that way. Well, this has been amazing. I did have one more question. Did you always know you had guides, or did this happen in parallel with accessing the records?
I'm not someone who was like born seeing my guides, not by any means. I, again, was always very spiritually connected. I mean, one of my first memories is definitely seeing angels, and I saw many miracles happen when I was younger, and had conversations with God multiple times, but it wasn't so much a like guides thing for me. Like, I'm very connected to God in an interesting sort of way that I don't fully understand. And even now, my guides for me are they're not necessarily guides that I like see and interact. I know who some of them are, but my primary, like I'm kind of, even when I was a Christian, I was like, I love Jesus, but I'm going straight to the source, man. I'm like, what's up, God? Like, I'm going to the big man. Like, that's where I want to go. Like, why stop at Jesus? You know, I'm just going straight up. And it's just the way it works for me. So
Yeah. So you feel the guides rather than see them?
yes, absolutely.
That's so cool.
I know when they like move in. I know when they're working on me. I know when they're, my primary, like my strongest gift, if you will, is hearing. And it's just an open channel 24/7.
Oh my goodness.
I had no idea. I had no idea that was what I thought it was my own voice, which a lot of people who are clairaudient will tell you, they'll be like, oh, it's just my voice. And even when people start really strengthening their clairaudience, it's starting to understand that your voice is also like the difference between your voice versus your guides, like what that difference is, like ego versus, those spiritual guides. And it's very soft and very gentle. And yeah, I always thought it was me. And then when I was shown that this was my primary gift, it was really cool. It was like one of my favorite moments in the Akashic Records, because for a long time I was really seeing things in the records when I first started, which was great. But I'm someone who will like point in a microwave and be like, shut the oven. Like I always get my words wrong. And so like figuring out how to fully articulate myself was, I was learning how to communicate. And then I learned through a meditation that clairaudience was my strongest gift. And I was just like, what? And I went into the Akashic ride after that, and they were like, yes, this is. And they showed me it was such a beautiful like session meeting with them. They showed me like music has always been huge for me my entire life. I'm extremely sensitive to sound. And a number of different things just really connected that. And then they showed me that like this had just like everything that I had been experiencing my whole life was that spiritual connection. And that was that being led, that being guided, that it was just coming through at all times, And then of course I made all the connections with, not all of them, but you can look back on your life and be like, oh my gosh, this and this and this.
Didn't realize, right? You always had it. Yeah. That's so
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah. I've had, probably not as dramatic, but I've had a similar sort of thing where I look back and say, oh, that wasn't me. That was somebody else, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really interesting. Really
I
interesting.
think all of us have. And usually our strongest gifts are the ones that we take for granted the most, the ones that we would never think are anything.
Right.
We don't realize like this is actually me, but not me. It's coming through me,
Yeah.
whether it's seeing with your third eye, maybe people with incredible imaginations, or like whatever the case may be, they don't realize that's a incredible intuitive gift that they have. I believe we're
Yeah.
all psychic. We're all extremely intuitive. Like,
We all have this. Yeah. For
absolutely.
me, I started to notice that I seem to know, and I never noticed this before, but I seem to know what to say to people. They need to talk about something, and I seem to know what to bring up. And, that's just not luck. That's a perception and intuition. And now I'm appreciating it, that I do, it's not just some quirky thing that I do, that it's literally that I feel this person's pain, or that, that they really want to talk about something.
Yeah. It's cognition.
Yeah. In a funny way, though, I also manifest parking spaces. And I actually read about this. I thought I was the only one, or I was like making it up, but it's just too freaky to be a coincidence. My family always says, oh, you're in the car. That's why we found a space. And it's usually the third space from the curb.
Interesting.
Not that it's super useful, but I just thought it's really good to recognize that and say, okay, you manifested something small. Maybe you have this ability. So it was really good to sort of take it seriously.
Yeah, 1000%.
Everyone should look at these things. I think that's such a good point, that people are psychic and they don't even know it. And people are getting information that's maybe not from them and they don't
Yes.
even know it. So
Yes,
I love that.
absolutely.
I do love that.
Absolutely. And there's such, I think that there's big benefit actually in something like parking spaces, because what that does is it opens a portal for you of what is possible and what you are capable of and how powerful that you are and how powerful we are. I mean, one of the biggest things that I share whenever I'm teaching is I'm not special. I'm not, like you can look at me and you can think that I've got these gifts and I could do these things. And it is very cool. But anybody can do this if they choose to do it, and they'll do it in their own way. And that'll be the perfect way for them. Right. So whether it opens up in a parking spot or maybe they're like seeing angel numbers or whatever the case may be, like things are happening more and more for people. And it's really just to start waking them up to like, you are connected, you are capable, you are powerful,
I think
and
that's beautiful that you remind people of that. I think that's lovely. So I don't think everyone does that. They sort of have these special gifts and they're special. Maybe they don't say that, but you sort of look at them that way, like, oh, they have these gifts. Although you did always feel that connection. I mean, it's strong in you, you know? It's
yeah,
really
for
kind of
sure.
fascinating that ever since you were little. I'm just so intrigued and I hope people contact you and learn more because I think we can all open up, and we can all enjoy more of the spectrum of spiritual experiences. It's been so cool talking to you.
Absolutely, Len. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. I loved it. Is there anything else you'd like to tell our listeners? I always like to give people one more shot.
I think the thing that I most love to say, and that is the slogan for my podcast, is that when we invest in ourselves, the world benefits. And when you put time and energy into yourself, don't be afraid to make yourself your number one priority. Take care of your physical body, take care of your spiritual body. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself because everyone will benefit from that. So that's the most dear thing to me.
I love that. It's not something people think about that,
Yeah,
when you change yourself, you help to change the world. I love
exactly.
that.